Really pleased to have Barney Addison with us. Hello, Barney. How's it all going?
Hello. Yeah, good, mate. Thank you.
And just to put it into context, we've got some people here that are part of Mass Records, part of artist development and in general. So all keen to hear and pick your brains about what you've been and your journey, really. So if that's all right with you, Barney, you like to explain your background in media, music, TV, and how you got into that?
So I was very lucky, because my dad worked as a journalist in telly. So he had a name to give me, an email address to give me of someone I could send my CV to. And I just got a lucky break, basically. A bit of nepotism. That is my journey. I'm not going to try and hide it. But then after that, he said to me, from that point on, I'm not helping you at all. But I basically just kind of emailed this guy. I ended up in this weird animation company. So I thought I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to work on Duck Killer and Danger Mouse, which most people are probably too young to remember. But once I realized how boring that is as a job, I decided to switch into kind of light entertainment and sort of shiny floor Saturday night TV. So I started off in things like Blind Date and Gladiators, a show called Man Oh Man. Used to work on Des O'Connor Tonight. I am that old, although I'm lit really beautifully, you can't really tell. But I always knew I wanted to be on those kind of those big, prime time Saturday night, talk about telly shows. And so I did. I sort of worked my way up since the age of 16. I started. Literally didn't go to uni. I went straight out of college and did it. Sort of, even my summer holidays, I was always doing work experience and just grafted. But for me, it didn't feel like work. It just felt like the best summer camp ever. Every time I did something, and when I ended up getting paid my first job, it's just before you could get away with doing work experience without paying people. I remember it just being like, what a massive bonus! How lucky, because it is just such a brilliant job. If you love TV and if you love working in TV, you'll have a great time. It'll never feel like work. A day will never feel like work. The minute you feel like it's not fun, just don't do it, because it's never going to get any harder or easier.
And do you think your background of your dad and being immersed in that in family life, do you think that's kind of blooded you for it? Do you think you saw your dad and thought, I want a piece of that? That sounds a great job.
I'm the youngest of three boys, and so all of us had the same opportunities, but I was the youngest and the only one who took any interest. My dad used to introduce us to Benny Hill and Morecambe and Wise and Kenny Everett and Joan Collins, all these amazing people. And me was just like, wow, this is so cool, and just wanted to do it forever. And I've ended up in a similar kind of industry, but different, because he was journalism. But it's the two do straddle along, because he worked in that sort of telly. But yeah, it was always obvious for me.
So what's your current job role now, and what does that entail? What is it exactly you do?
So I'm in charge of, my title is head of talent, and I'm in charge of anything contributor based on any TV shows that Thames Television make. So if there is a contributor on screen, then I've usually seen them. But I also run the teams that try and find those contributors. So whether or not it's the X Factor or BGT or Greatest Dancer, or even more recently, Blankety Blank had a Christmas special. I was in charge of finding those contributors to be on those shows. So I'm basically the kind of filter before they actually make it onto TV.
I guess we kind of covered this initially, but I guess, did you always feel like you wanted to work in media? Is that always something did you have any aspirations for something else, or did it always feel a bit destined once you saw Dad and went to these places and saw these people?
It was always media. It was never anything else. Never wanted to be an astronaut. I always wanted to be an animator, as I said, but then it was quickly realised as a very painstaking and brilliant job to do. But I'd much rather watch cartoons than make them.
So I think one of the questions I had, you start your career, and I guess it was through animation, as you say. So I guess, what would be your main advice, going a bit left field with it, if someone wanted to get in TV, wanted to get involved with Britain's Got Talent, X Factor? What would be your best bit of advice for anyone listening today to do, and how to go about getting involved in that?
Ultimately, it's just about hustling. It's just about kind of applying and hassling people for jobs. Because ultimately, even though I got that break into that animation company, I then had to network and find the person who was going to help me to get the next step. As I say, I was lucky. I was given that break by my dad, but it's not impossible to break in. Ultimately, if you've got the passion and you've got the right kind of skill set and you've got the right kind of work ethic, then someone will spot you and someone will snap you up.
And is there an internship scheme now with Thames TV, or is that, I mean, obviously COVID is a slightly different scenario at the moment, but is there one in the offing if people did want to go through that process that they apply or not?
There isn't a kind of official internship scheme, but what I always recommend to people who want to get into the type of telly that I make is to take on those sort of day running roles, and which there are usually quite a lot of those roles going, because then essentially the production company can hire you for a number of days, and that is kind of how you get your first leg in. For example, on an auditions day or a filming day or a different shoot, where you can meet all the different people that make the TV show and kind of make yourself known basically, and just do a great job. Do a great job and you'll get noticed.
Yeah, and how they normally advertise, or how do they go about that? Sorry to be as apt on that, but you know, I'm just thinking from point of view, where would I go? Where do I turn up to, or what do I have to send?
There are loads of Facebook groups. Unfortunately, it's quite archaic in that sense. I think I think they are advertised on other places, but whenever I'm hiring, I look on Facebook, and there are loads of different groups for hiring production runners, and each kind of different sector of TV, whether it's casting or directing or running, there are different Facebook groups for each of them.
So once they kind of sort of find these opportunities, what kind of stands out for you, and maybe someone you think, do you know what, that's actually someone I'll give them another thing to do and throw another bone to them to do. What would be the things you would advise people are really the main thing? You get that opportunity, what you then do with it?
Ultimately, somebody who listens, and somebody who just performs the task to like the best of their ability, and can just see ahead to the next potential problem, and has a kind of foresight essentially to just second guess what that particular person they're working to. If it's me, knowing that I'm going to, for example, if I'm in a room doing auditions and I'm about to finish the one that I'm in, it's about that person outside the room who is doing that job, getting the next person ready and having them ready. It's simple things like that. It sounds simple and it sounds almost obvious, but actually someone who does that and does it with a smile on their face is going to get noticed.
Excellent, that's cool. So here's a good one to maybe, because there is a crossover. We've got music, we've got TV. Where do you think the role of your TV overlaps with music industry?
Well, I've worked on a lot of music TV, basically. I've worked on a lot of talent shows. I was talking to the guys before everyone came on about the fact that I worked on Pop Idol Series 1 with Will Young and Gareth Gates, and that was in 2003. And that was one of the first big music TV shows. And it was very much a collaboration between the music industry and the TV industry, because it was a genuine search to find someone for Simon Cowell to sign to his label. It was a really glossy, well-lit documentary, if as it were, with a format in the middle of it all. Because he was ultimately looking for someone to sign, and we needed to have very much a marriage between TV and music to make that work and make it look good. Because if a TV show tried to make a music talent show without the help of the music industry, I don't think it would do particularly well, because it just needs to have that credibility, and it needs to have that insight that only really comes from the music industry.
And I suppose over all the years of having the people in front of the cameras, and some would have won and some wouldn't, we all know sometimes there's a few that are bat crazy, but whether they've made it or not, who's really stood out for you and you've gone, do you know what, can't work with them or whatever, but there's just so much talent. Is there anyone in particular that stands out, whether they made it or not? So
many, because I've done this job for a long time, and I'm not easily impressed, obviously, because I've got very strict standards, but I get excited about people quite a lot. That's part of the reason I think I do my job well, is because I am passionate. When I meet somebody, I just get really excited about them. But there have been a few that come to mind over the years, and I think Tokyo Myers, who won BGT in 2017, is such an extraordinary, unique artist and a really amazing bloke with a fantastic and really fascinating backstory. And he was unlike anything I'd ever seen on TV or on a talent show, because he felt real. He felt really like a proper artist who really worked hard and almost kind of made it really before he came to us. It came to us on BGT, and he came in. He had such great ideas, and he just was able to articulate them so well. And I think for someone like him on BGT, it was quite a surprising move for him, and I think as a show, because the show up until that point was always it was very family friendly. It was very much about kind of the sort of warmth that BGT brings. But I think because he was slightly edgier and had come from a slightly different part of music, he just felt like he really stepped that show up as well. He sort of made it cool, made it credible, because he wasn't like Paul Potts, who was a classical artist. And so I think or Susan Boyle, again, who was kind of classical crossover musical theatre, he felt contemporary and he felt exciting. there's so many. I mean, James Smith auditioned for the show in 2014 when he was 14 years old, and I knew when I met him that he was going to be really, really successful in whatever way, whatever he does in the future. At the moment, he's getting some traction, and I'm so pleased for him, because when I met him, we randomly hired out RADA just in central London to do some auditions in one of their halls, and he came in and he just filled the room with personality. And before he'd even started singing, I just fallen in love with him, because he's just such a great personality, and it's like a light switch being turned on in the room. But then he sang, and he had this really old school, old soul, but kind of mashed up with the kind of youth and the energy that he brought. And he's now, the proof's in the pudding. He's now kind of picking up some traction, which is great for him.
Well, I can hear from the way you described him, you clearly felt quite passionate about both of them.
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
Are they both signed now? Have they both kind of got their own labels? Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a part of the reason why we're talking about tonight, is that crossover between, getting your music out there, getting exposure and potentially landing a deal. And that's for some people, and other artists it's not. At what point in an artist's career should you really consider applying for TV exposure with one of the TV shows you do?
Well, ultimately, it's about whether you feel ready, and that's kind of logistically, physically, mentally. But really, it's about those shows for me. And the way I always, whenever someone asks me this question, it's about selling a product, and you are the product. So get that product ready, and that comes down to getting your social media platforms up to scratch. It comes down to having new music kind of in your back catalogue to potentially release off the back of the show, or to perform on the show. But really, it's aside from all of that, it's about feeling comfortable in your own skin and feeling like you don't have to pretend to be somebody else. Because people ask me for hints and tips, but I'm like, if it just needs to be you, because it'll just fall down very quickly if you're trying to be somebody else, or trying to please somebody, or please Simon Cowell, or judges or coaches it is you're trying to perform to. It's got to come from you, because ultimately it's about you kind of staying integral to who you are as a person and as an artist.
It's difficult though, isn't it? Because if you're young and you've got a lot of people smoking, steam up you and saying how good you are, it must be difficult to keep that composure, isn't it? I mean, flipping the question a little bit, when is it not the right time, do you think? Or is that maybe a tricky one?
It's not a tricky one. I think it's kind of, I go back to my original answer. It's like, if you don't feel ready, if you don't feel like you really know who you are as an artist, because ultimately the way, I think, I'm sort of echoing something that Simon said, but he likes to be educated. He doesn't want to be the one who has to teach people how to do things. I think back in the day, back on shows like Pop Idol, early X Factor, it was very much about kind of almost boot camp was a word that was kind of introduced, I suppose, because people wanted to be taught how to do certain things and kind of how to be an artist. But actually, I think those shows need artists to come on them to almost reinvent them and bring fresh energy and fresh artistry and just fresh human beings with different things to say. But it's about feeling ready, basically, but with all the things I've said previously.
Yeah, that's really interesting, the way that you point that out, that you've gone from almost like like a boot camp and kind of like throwing them together, and this is it, molding them. And actually what you're saying from our conversation, it's almost like, you've got an artist now that come in and knowing very much who they are and what they stand for. That's really interesting, actually.
I think the dream scenario is when somebody auditions for the show and they've really kind of identified their own lane, because what the show doesn't want to do is be accused of kind of creating puppets. And I think that's what the industry doesn't want either. Certainly, it's very, very different to what it was when those shows first started out. But it's about somebody coming in and the A&R teams on those shows knowing exactly what it is that they're going to be doing throughout the show, and kind of helping them kind of just boost that and really get the most out of it from their experience.
So I guess from expectations of getting on the show, and it's a slightly different question, but it seems quite relevant, is like, how much help do you think artists get when they're on the show? In some cases you kind of sort of like, they know what they're doing, we leave them alone, or do other artists you think, do you know what, we see something there, but how much involvement is there once they kind of enter the show? Is it behind the scenes?
Well, it's the same in the industry, basically. Some people will get signed to a label and have everything ready to go, but I think it's about potential ultimately. And I think if you are that far ahead in terms of your artistry and having the music sourced out and working out who you are as an artist, then you probably need less help. But potentially the people working on that show, or the judges who are judging those shows, will see something and will just help basically bring what they think is something, naturally bring that out to that artist, that contestant.
So how can an artist really stand out at auditions? What would be your sort of maybe top 5 tips for making them stand out? And you could include maybe some of the things we talked about earlier, like, song choice, what songs to avoid, and maybe ones to pick up on, really.
I mean, yeah, Chris and I were talking just before this started about the songs that I and he hear all the time, constantly repeated in auditions. And I think it's just about, in order to stand out, I think the first thing you're going to be judged on is your song choice, because it's about not doing something that everybody has done or potentially will be doing. So it's about identifying those artists that are probably in the top 10. So for example, at one point it was kind of Ed Sheeran was all I heard. At one point it was Adele. So I guess it's kind of go against the grain, go against what is potentially popular, and choose something that is slightly more kind of unique and different. And also it's about arranging music as well, choosing a cover that you can do something interesting with. I know it almost sounds obvious now because everyone kind of does it, but it's, if you can think of a song that hasn't been covered to death and then take it and do something different with it. I think Callum Scott is somebody who I always throw back to on BGT, because I think the main thing that got him spotted, because obviously on the show it played out that his sister Jade auditioned and she wasn't successful, so he had to come out just off the back of it and perform under the pressure of the fact that his sister was obviously upset about that she hadn't progressed. But I don't think that would have been enough had he have not chosen that Robin song that actually the Kings of Leon had covered in Live Lounge, and took it and then spun his own cover on a cover. It was just such a unique song, sung by an artist with a voice that was very different to the original, and wasn't a song you typically hear on BGT all the time. Robin isn't an artist you necessarily would hear on BGT, you wouldn't associate her with BGT, but he took it and he did something beautiful with it, and it was an amazing moment. And I think it's just about thinking really cleverly about your song choice. But on top of that, I think it's just about relax and be yourself. You don't have to dress to be the pop star that you want to be. Like it's about just being yourself, and just essentially feel like when you walk down that stage that you are being 100% you, and every answer that you give isn't you thinking what answer should I give. Just answer. However, because what the most amazing thing about you is that you make yourself unique. So just think about how I should answer that, and give the answer that you want to give.
And I think you've always hinted off from the other way around when you've said to me, like, what acts to stand out. You're always sort of quite after personality, aren't you? And in terms of what does that? It seems an obvious question, but what is personality for you? What's I mean, we kind of know it, but what does it define as? Is it someone trying to be someone they're not? I guess you've alluded to being themselves, haven't you? I don't know.
I think there's quite a lot of criticism sometimes on TV or in music TV talent shows that, oh, they're only looking for personalities, they're not looking for talent. But I think we're all looking for personalities in life and in music and in TV. Like, I think the world would be a very boring place if there was no personality. I think Lewis Capaldi, for example, I don't think would be half as successful as he is if it wasn't for the fact that he's just such a brilliant personality. And Lizzo is another example. Like, she's just a brilliant performer, an amazing artist, and the songs are really great, but you like her and you're drawn to her and you want to hear what she's got to say. Like, for me, pop stars, the ones that I love are the ones who've got something to say, that you remember quotes that they've said as well as lines from their songs. That's, for me, is something that you just, it's hard to put your finger on it. But when you see somebody who just lights up a room, or it's just got something really endearing about them, or potentially, there's something going on in their life or in their background which is just informed of the way that they move, or the way that they talk, or their speech patterns. It's about, what is it about that person that I love? I can't tell you, but there's an aura about them, and you just fall in love with them.
So I guess for some people, and you've alluded to, you kind of know when they're ready, when they're not. I'm aware sometimes that they can be, perhaps disillusioned with where they are a little bit, or, thinking that they're ready when they're not. What would be your advice to make sure you're really ready? If you're really unsure, that's kind of maybe telling you you're not ready. So what sort of things can artists do to say, right, these are the things I'd suggest you do to know you're ready in a year or two? These are the things I'd work on if I was you.
I think the most important thing for me is live performance. there's only so much you can do from your bedroom. Obviously, right now, nothing you can do live performance wise. But I think if you were planning on entering a TV talent show and they don't have any musical live performance, I think that's where you're going to fall down, because that's what those shows are. Even though they're in a TV studio, sometimes they're in Wembley Stadium, sometimes they're in Birmingham NEC or whatever it is. But you're on camera, but you're still performing in a live environment. So you need to be able to kind of feel comfortable on stage, and just know that the song that you've done has gone down well in front of an audience. But not everybody has that luxury. But I think it's just about, I think it's about getting enough of a litmus test from the people that follow you and follow your music, outside of your family and friends, perhaps. But I think that you feel confident enough, and confidence is the most important thing, really.
I think, we say it all the time from the competition and from Future Music, is that there's plenty of places once we open up to get out there and just immerse yourself in open mic nights, and eventually, hopefully, then paid gigs or expenses come along, and eventually you may be doing less open mics but more paid gigs, and just get into good habits and treat every gig the same, really. So it's really good advice on that. I tell you what was interesting with, because obviously we took open mic online, is that, and Teen Star, is that actually, I think for those that really prepared their online stuff, they got by so far, but actually when you got to the grand final, you still saw the same faces that just had that extra bit of something. And it was just interesting to know, that the same 3 or 4 people would have been in the same top 3, regardless if we were live or not. But so there was something that they need to get out of live performance or over the camera. They just seem to have naturally, whether that's developed or not, really. So sorry, I digress a little bit.
Doing live gigs and performances shouldn't feel like a chore. It shouldn't feel like something you have to do to get to a certain point. But that is the reason you're getting into this. If you love music and you're a performer and you're an artist, live performance is the reason. I think most 99.9% of artists do it for those live performances. So that should be the reason you're getting out of bed every day, because you want to perform to people. You want people to hear your music, hear your voice, and just kind of get to know you as an artist.
So how important does social media play a part in getting involved in TV shows? Is that a good thing that there's lots of interest already on social media, or is it more beneficial there's not a lot going on? What's your take on that?
Well, I think I was thinking about this question earlier, but I think it's, for me, whenever I'm watching a TV show and I watch a talent show that I haven't cast, or even another type of TV show, and there's a contributor on screen that I'm interested in, the first thing I'll do is go and look on their social media and kind of see what they're about outside of the shows, and just to sort of see a bit more about them, see more pictures, more videos, just to kind of get a grip on what they're up to. But yeah, I think it's just a really good way of connecting with people who like what you do. So you don't have to have thousands of followers to be on a TV show. Of course you don't. It doesn't make a difference to me, because the show could be the reason you get those followers. But just to have those platforms in place and just have a sort of a sense of what it is you're trying to say on them, I would advise that for sure.
So what do you personally look for in an artist? That's sort of one question. And the other side is maybe, what do you look for in an artist? And we probably covered it in some areas, but maybe to summarize it, for TV, what's the main ingredients that you want on camera?
I mean, it's kind of repeating myself, but it is personality. It is about that thing that draws you to them. If it's just about someone that I remember who's just got that thing about them. I'm not going to say the words the X Factor, but it is something special. And I think when it comes to an artist, when I've had people walk into the audition rooms that I've been in, there's just something about that person who stands out there. It creates a bit of a wash over you. You sort of feel like this sort of buzz when they talk, when they're performing. You don't want them to leave. You just get that sense that there's something special about that person. And I know that's quite an unhelpful answer, but it's almost just to kind of, it's my personal taste, but my personal taste obviously lends itself quite well to the shows that I've worked on. And also it's definitely not just my decision as to who appears on those shows, but it's definitely down to a kind of committee. But it's about standing out by having something to say, because whenever you audition for those shows, you're being assessed, judged, kind of gazed upon from the second you appear in front of those producers or those judges or those scouts, because it's kind of like how you walk in the room, what you say when you walk in the room, where you stand, how you stand. But don't overthink those things, because it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. But just think about that as well as the song you're going to sing, and kind of having your kind of your phone ready with your track on it, and it's just about what can I say when I walk in? Just be polite, say hello, give them a smile, and the rest should fall into place.
I guess the more you're used to performing in front of strangers and different people, the more comfortable you're going to feel within yourself, aren't you?
Yeah.
I guess same as an interview. I guess if you go into it not prepared and and suddenly it comes undone, doesn't it? Because you kind of sort of
Yeah.
not done the lead work. Is there been
That being said, sorry, Chris. That being said, I mean, it's confidence and knowing yourself and all those things are really important. But you do get those odd people who, when I say odd, it's just the odd one or two people is what I mean, who turn up to auditions and haven't got any experience and are really, really lacking in confidence. But us as producers, as scouts, as A&R people, it's our job to be able to spot that potential. And I think Zayn Malik is a really good example of that. I think that Jermaine Douglas is a really good example of that, because they don't necessarily have the confidence to have that much of a conversation, because they've never really done that in front of people because they're too young, or they've had probably they've had issues in their past or whatever it is. But it's for us to be able to see through all of that and spot that raw potential. And that is, I think it kind of goes against everything I've said, but it does sometimes happen.
He was an interesting Jermaine Douglas, wasn't he? Because he kind of did the competition a couple of times with open mic, and he gave me a bit of a headache actually the first year I did it, because we was actually before we did it called South Coast Idol, so and I just have loads of people from all around the country, and it's like, oh, this is meant to be like a regional competition, and just one performance you go, wow, where has this guy come from? And then almost the next one be like, it's just a different singer, it's just a different lad. It was really interesting, and I think he did it again when he came back to the competition, and obviously then went on to X Factor. But I think, he may have developed by then. But it was really interesting how up and down it was, and I think you see that a lot with youngsters, don't you? Just ironing out that consistency and
because people are human at the end of the day. Some people can have an off day, but it's up to us to be able to spot whether it's an off day or it's just not right for them. Full stop.
Aside of personality, aside of kind of the talent, is there anything that's been stood out for you, particular artists, to why they make it and don't make it? Is there anything they do that you kind of see off screen that you just think there's something about this? Is there any characteristics you see and patterns?
I would say, I mean, this goes for life really, but outside of music and TV, it's just about hard work and being polite and just kind of soaking up all the people that are around you. But I think also it's just about knowing who you are and having a clear idea of what it is you want to get out of these experiences, and just having a clear vision basically, and not relying on other people to tell you what that is. Because the only person who knows you better there's nobody who knows you better than yourself. So just kind of get to grips with what it is that you want. Why is it you've turned up on that audition day? Why do you think that you should be on that show, have those moments, potentially win those shows and record contracts? Why did you put yourself in the first place? Because I think I've asked that question a lot, and some people don't have an answer. You need to know the answer to that.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I think this whole chat is really kind of, I can see the passion that you've kind of found, almost like your vocation in life. The passion's coming out in your answer. But is there any favourite parts of your job? And maybe we should flip it as well and say, is there any parts of the job you think could do with just easing that one off a bit to someone else?
I mean, I'm not very good at admin, but I love auditions, and I think you can sit in a lot of auditions for weeks and weeks. I've done it for kind of 20 years, and you never remember the auditions that aren't memorable, because that is what they are, unmemorable, and the ones that are, they're the ones you remember. So actually you kind of look back on it with rose tinted glasses and go, they're all amazing. But there's something about sitting in a room and somebody walking in and performing for you, where you just get that rush. You just go, God, this person's brilliant, whether or not it's for a TV show or they're just a brilliant personality or person, and you just want to know them. You want to know more about them. And I guess that's me being a people person. I've always kind of been really interested and kind of nosy, basically, and just want to kind of I want to have the best opportunity possible.
And so just a bit aside, and by all means, if feel free to take which answers you want to do. But say for a team around Britain's Got Talent, I mean, how many people would you be in charge with of a complete series? How many sort of involved in that from your end of head of talent?
For Britain's Got Talent, a lot basically, because we travel around the country and see everybody as much as we can. We do kind of mobile auditions, and used to use vans and travel around and see people out the back of a van. But it's a big team, and, and they travel around in pairs. Probably about sort of 25 people work under me at one time, and they're all doing different things, especially on BGT, because it's such a hugely varied show. Obviously, it's a variety show at its best, and so you are looking for lots of different things. There's lots of different types of people you're talking to, and different aspects of entertainment industry that you need to talk to and get to know. And there's so much research that goes into the acts themselves, because you can't just kind of tip up and kind of slide down a pole with a sword in your mouth just at the drop of a hat. We have to know all the health and safety measures that have to go into that. We have to know that he's done it before. We have to know that we have to see evidence of that. We have to kind of prep the medic to be on standby should anything go wrong, get the cameras in place. So there's lots of different things that have to go into each audition on that show. So it's a huge team. I don't run all of that side of things. I run the search for and the kind of the audition side of that job. So, but there is no show without the casting on that show.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. Is there anything particularly you'd want to sort of say, just that maybe we haven't covered? I think we've tried to cover from a point of view of people that want to get involved in TV and A&R and that side of things. From an artist point of view, is there anything you think we've missed, or anything that's any little nuggets that we could give to some of the would-be?
I think there was something we were talking about before about whether or not there was a difference between an artist for the X Factor and an artist for BGT. The short answer to that is no. I think about 5 or 6 years ago, the answer would have been yes. I would have felt like, I think more classical artists work better on BGT because it's such a huge variety of different acts, and I think the classical artists have really done well on it. But then somebody like Tokyo Myers or James Smith or Callum Scott comes along, and it just feels right at the right time, because they're all doing something slightly different. They're not just performing just normal covers, they're performing their original music, or they're performing incredibly different compositions, which in itself is a really amazing talent. So I would never close my eyes to any type of act or type of artist or singer or performer on either show.
I've got to ask it, what has been your proudest moment of your working career? What's the moment where you felt the proudest?
Weirdly, I would say, people might not remember him, but he was a really, really special artist for me on the show. He was a guy called Sean Miley Moore, who was on X Factor 2015. He got to the live shows. He was a really unique artist. He travelled all the way from Australia. He had a dual passport, so his dad was British and his mum was Australian. He travelled all the way here, and I knew he was coming. We'd scouted him for the show, so we kind of auditioned him via video, but rather than kind of getting him to waste his time and travel over from the Australia. But when he came and did his audition in person in the office before he went on stage, that was a really proud moment, because it was a really good call, basically, to ask him to come over, because he was so unique, he was so different. And Simon echoed all of those things when he auditioned. He was like, when we do these shows, we're looking for somebody who we can't compare to anybody else, and he was exactly that. He walked out in heels and a PVC pencil skirt with a shaved head and a backwards baseball cap, and performed a Queen song, and it was just epic. Like, he was such a fantastic singer and character and performer. I just loved him. That's probably my proudest moment, is standing there in Wembley Arena and he performed, and I knew I was very much a part of that, the reason he was there. And Simon kind of motioned me over and said, well done. And it was a really exciting moment, because I loved him as a person, as a performer, as an artist, and everybody else did. So that was really proud.
Excellent. And you were allowed to say what your, how you get on with Simon Cowell? Are you classify him as a friend now, and how does he roll?
He's very much my boss, basically, but he is a really inspiring human being. He's done amazing things. He's got so much to say about the industry, and everything he says is really fascinating. He's got such a strong opinion. But yeah, he knows my name. He knows who I am. I do a job for him, and I've been doing it for a while, so I can't be doing anything wrong.
Yeah. Very good, very good. So, Lewis, if everyone listening in, this is your opportunity to put some questions to Barney. Keep it nice and clean, and then I'm sure you'll get the answer you want. We've got some questions that have come in, Lewis.
We've had one from Sasha, just asking about what's the split between people who get scouted and make it to the live shows and people who turn up at auditions.
It's kind of different every year. To be honest, because there's a new search every year, auditions crack on every year, and the scouting process happens every year. But ultimately, the scouting process doesn't kind of give you any advantage other than the fact that somebody has seen you. If you want to be seen, then go to an audition. I guess it's just about those researchers and scouts getting to you and finding you, because everybody who goes on the show goes through a process, goes through an audition process, just exactly the same as somebody who hadn't been scouted. But there've been years when it's been kind of 70-30%, or it's been kind of 50-50, or it's been 20% scouted and 80% application. But it depends every year. It really is. There's no kind of agenda for us. We don't necessarily want to have to scout people to do the show, because it kind of makes our job much more difficult. But ultimately, if you apply for the show and you're kind of as good as you would be if you were being scouted, then you'll get spotted. You're being scouted whether you're applying for the show or if you're being scouted by somebody online.
Sure. So it's what they kind of perform on the day and how they turn up, really.
Yeah. I mean, I've personally scouted people who've been brilliant in open mics, or they've been brilliant in wherever else they were doing, and it just doesn't work out for them on the day. And there's nothing I can do about it. It's just the way the world works. It is a real situation. You're walking into a real audition, and that audition is down to you to perform in.
Staying on that subject, when scouting, what's the best way for an artist to get noticed? Where do you guys look? Is there anything the artist could be doing to get themselves noticed online or in person?
It is doing things like Open Mic UK, Teen Star. It's doing open mics all over the country, because we do scatter our scouts all over the country. It's just about getting yourself in front of human beings in an audience, whether or not it's online. But there isn't anything specific I would say, apart from I could give you a list of open mics to go and do. But it's about it's just about kind of cutting your teeth on your local one first, and then potentially traveling to the nearest biggest city and kind of competing with those people. But yeah, it's just about getting out there and just waiting to be noticed, or just not waiting to be noticed. Put yourself forward and apply.
Sure.
Just a quick one, actually. Is there a bit of cross reference between maybe if you've got Britain's Got Talent and front, I don't know, there's French and all these different territories? Is there much crossover? Because we notice some acts come through from different countries. Is that something you could go for Britain's Got Talent and actually go a certain way and go, actually, this is a good one for throwing over, like Courtney Hadwin, for example? Was that someone that you saw in Britain's Got Talent and go, actually, she'd be really good for America? Or how does that work?
I mean, there are different teams working on those different territories. They're all looking for the same thing, basically. America's Got Talent, they scout all over the world for all different types of acts. But for us, when we're scouting BGT, if there's something we've seen on another Got Talent that feels like it could be culturally kind of relevant, or if you feel like our audience are going to really love that act, whatever it is, then we'll kind of offer the chance to apply for the show. But it really just depends on each individual act, really. We don't specifically look for acts from other Got Talents because we have to have a certain quota. It's just about if it feels right for a BGT.
I suppose I was thinking, if you kind of got so far in it, and actually, there's another opportunity over here because they've seen you on Britain's Got Talent, because Courtney Hadwin probably did far better in America's Got Talent than she did in her own native country. So it's an interesting that opportunity came about,
Yeah, for sure. I think she did The Voice Kids. Is that right? I think she did that, and then I should imagine somebody on America's Got Talent spotted her and saw that, because of her style, it's very Janis Joplin, it's very American, her style. I should think they probably felt like I would do, that would work for our audience.
Yeah, interesting. Sorry, Lewis.
No, that's okay. A good one from Ollie. What's it like? What's a typical week like for some of the artists that are participating in a show? So, do they get much time off? Is it filmed quite quickly, or do they kind of wait around and have to come back? What's the kind of day?
It depends what stage you're at in the competition, obviously. Say, for example, if you're in the live shows, you're very busy all the time, which is great, because it's kind of potentially 7 weeks of your life, which you'll never be able to replicate. So it's kind of, there's so many experiences to happen, whether or not it's choreography or routining or vocal coaching or talking to journalists or doing more spots on TV, going to talk to Lorraine on her sofa. But yeah, it's full on. And then obviously you've got to think about actually performing on the Saturday night as well as all those things. So yeah, typical week is kind of busy every day, but really exciting. It's not like work, is it? If you're at that stage and you're doing what you want to do, then it should feel like a pleasure.
Sure. And I think you've covered some of it, but maybe into a bit more detail. In auditions, do you look for someone's character and personality to be unique and interesting, or do you look for more on the talent and their vocal ability? I suppose from our perspective, we see a lot of talented singers, we see a lot of talented vocalists. So sometimes for us, it's about what separates one good vocalist from another, and maybe that's where the personality comes into play.
Yeah, I would say that our kind of our vision for somebody appearing in one of these shows is very similar to somebody scouting for a label, because you've got to be able to kind of engage with an audience, and that's usually down to A, your voice, B, your songwriting skills or performance skills, but also what you've got to say and who you are as a person. And I think when you say unique, I think unique is one thing, but I think being relatable and being kind of likable and kind of fun to watch, fun to be around. You don't have to be kooky crazy to be spotted, because a lot of the time people think that's what it is, but actually if you just walk in and I feel like I know you, I feel like I've met you before, did I go to school with you, there's something familiar about somebody. And I think that's why people like Adele, that's why people like Lewis Capaldi, because they just feel like people you might meet down the pub, but also they've got that extraordinary talent to back it up. But we don't look for one thing over the other, it's the package basically. The golden goose is finding somebody who's got all of those things.
Fantastic. I suppose it can't be taught, can it? You've just got to immerse yourself in your world around you, the music around you, get involved, network as much as you can, go to open mic nights, and you'll find yourself as an artist, you'll find your personality will shine through a lot more the more you kind of jump into it. Yeah,
don't try and be kooky or unique if you're not, because it just doesn't work and you can't keep it up. Just be yourself. Like, I think nerves is one thing that really kind of can get in people's way, and that's just unfortunately something you just need to work through, and it might not work out on that particular day because your nerves got in the way, but I think you can learn from those experiences and reapproach those shows or those opportunities again with the benefit of hindsight, because you've been through that audition process, you've been in that room, you've met that person, so hopefully it'll get a little bit easier each time you do it. So don't be discouraged if for example you've auditioned for a show before and you think, oh, I'm not what I'm looking for. It's just about how far along you've come as a person since that opportunity came on the first time.
Cool. Is there a good city to be in, or is there anywhere to live in the UK that's, your opportunities are going to be higher in particular, or is it kind of a mix?
I mean, the cliche thing to say is London, but I think you could say the same thing about Manchester, Liverpool, I think Cardiff, Newcastle, like anywhere, I think anywhere that feels like home to you, and informs who you are as an artist, because somebody who lives down in Newquay or down in Bodmin Moor could still be an amazing artist. You don't have to move to a big city to be an artist, because ultimately you've either got it or you haven't. I think opportunities sometimes are more frequent in the bigger cities because there's essentially more footfall, more bars, more open mics, more opportunities, but you don't have to be somewhere to do well. That's my opinion.
No, I kind of agree with that, and we've had some fantastic artists come on board last year from rural Wales, and still taking nothing away. They're absolutely amazing performers and personalities.
That's often really exciting for us when somebody comes from a really small island, just in the Orkney Isles, or whether it's the Isle of Man or something like that, because they haven't been necessarily affected by the culture of a particular city. They kind of really have brought just that sort of small town mentality, and they haven't been kind of jaded by an industry around them. They just bring themselves and their music and just a bit of that culture with them. That's really exciting. That happens.
For sure. Is it better to bring a guitar with you to an audition and sing an original song with it?
It depends if you're any good at playing it, really, I would say. Yeah, I mean, there's I wouldn't say necessarily a misconception. Simon Cowell isn't the biggest fan of guitars, but until somebody performs really well with one and it feels like it really belongs in their hands, I think if you're able to kind of perform with a track or a guitar, have that option. But if you are somebody who performs with the guitar and that's what you are, that's who you do, don't change yourself because a TV show thinks you shouldn't. Like, it's just about whether it feels right for you, and again, as I say, just get really good at it.
What about on the side of originality? Obviously, when someone performs a cover song, it always sounds better because it's normally written by a couple of people, if not a team of people. It's got a great backing track, has a lot of impact. When someone's just starting to write their own music, is that would you look for an original artist more over someone who's coming along and just singing a cover?
It's case by case, really. I think some people are just really amazing cover artists, but some people just live and breathe original music. And actually, there are some original artists, if you ask them to do a cover, it wouldn't be quite the same. I think what I would always recommend if you're going to perform an original song on a show like this is it needs to be from the heart. It needs to be, you need to sort of know what that song is about and I think it has to be about you. That's how I feel. It's quite hard when I ask somebody, oh, what's the song about? They're like, it's not really about anything. It's just kind of like about that feeling that you have when you wake up in the morning. It's like, well, no, it needs to be sort of about an experience that you've had or a story you're trying to tell. That's, for me, that's when it stands out, because it's hard for an audience to get to know a person, a voice, and a song all at once. But when the right person has all those things and does all those things, it just falls into place.
I think Chris covered it a few times in our competition, but just connecting with, like you said, connecting to the emotion and the story of the song, and it actually meaning something rather than just singing words for the sake of singing and people listening to your voice. It's what really captures people is that connection and something that's really meaningful to the artist, and it really comes across when you see that. Yeah.
No, definitely. It's really exciting when someone comes in and does an original song, and it's good. And you're like, you wrote that? That's so. It's just, I find it extraordinary because I'm not a writer, I'm not a performer or a singer. So when somebody can do it and can do it really well, I find that really, really impressive.
I think that's it for now. Then I think that's all the questions covered for this evening. Chris, have you got anything to add at this point?
No, just picking up on the last point you said there. I mean, you know, we've got CC in 4 weeks' time. She's a great one for actually reading the lyrics and kind of really understanding what you're doing, because I think we all do it. We all listen to songs and that's nice, but actually sometimes there's a little bit of a penny drop. Sometimes you think, actually that song's really deep, or it's really got a meaning. And I think sometimes that's really lost with the artist. I think, actually, do you really know what the message you're trying to connect to us? Because actually, if you don't, then how are we going to get it as an audience? Whether that's Simon Cowell or whether it's you picking them to go on the show, that's their audience. And I think that's a real key factor. So that's quite relevant in 4 weeks' time. You know, and certainly after today, Lewis, you're going to forward maybe some relevant links from carrying on from this, a bit more advice on, you know, when to come into approach record labels, when to approach TV and stuff like that. But Barney, I mean, fantastic to give us your time. Thank you ever so much. I know it's, you know, it's been great having you on, and always a great supporter of obviously the competitions and young talent. So big round of applause for Barney. Thank you very much. And
thank you.
And really insightful in terms of how you can get behind the scenes as well and get a foot in the door with some of these the industry. So thank you ever so much. I know Lewis is going to get out links to everybody for future mass records and future music masterclasses. But for now, that's brilliant. And thank you and good night to everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Good evening.